You know, we're all taught a pretty simple truth from a young age. Real food is the foundation of good health. Simple enough, right? But what happens when that simple idea runs headfirst into the sometimes totally illogical reality of our medical system? That's the story we're going to dive into today.
So let me just ask you, what does a healthy diet even look like? I bet you're picturing things like fruits, vegetables, maybe some lean proteins, real whole food. For pretty much all of us, that's the gold standard, no debate. But here's where we hit a stunning contradiction. For those of us who eat normally, whole foods are it. That's the goal. But for some of the most medically fragile people who rely on a feeding tube to live, the system often forces them to use synthetic, highly processed formulas first. It's a completely different standard of care, and you have to ask, why?
Okay, so let's break down these two very different paths for what's called enteral nutrition. You've got real food on one side and these synthetic formulas on the other.
So first up is something called Blenderized Tube Feeding, or BTF, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's all about a food-first philosophy, using formulas that are made from the same stuff we'd all consider healthy. It's really just a normal, real food diet, just, prepared so it can be used in a feeding tube.
And then you have the alternative, standard commercial formulas. Now these are a whole different ballgame. They're usually made from synthetic or super highly processed ingredients. Think processed carbs and a bunch of synthetic additives. It's a world away from that whole food approach.
And look, this isn't just about a preference, right? The clinical evidence here is incredibly strong. Study after study shows that when patients get to use whole food formulas, they see this huge drop in GI problems. We're talking less vomiting, less bloating, they have better growth, a healthier gut. It turns out our bodies are built for, actual food.
But if you need one stat to sum it all up, here it is. A study from Boston Children's Hospital found that kids on whole food formulas had 53% fewer hospital admissions. Just let that sink in for a second. More than half. That one number tells you everything you need to know about the real-world impact here.
So this brings us to the big, obvious question. If the science is so clear and the results are this dramatic, why aren't whole food formulas the first and only choice? Why is it so incredibly hard to get the better option?
The answer, in 2 words, is fail first. It's this widespread insurance policy that basically says a patient has to first try and physically get sick on a standard synthetic formula. Only after they've proven that they can't tolerate it will insurance even think about covering a whole food option.
And for a family, this process is an absolute gauntlet. Think about it. Step 1, the doctor is forced to prescribe the standard synthetic formula. Step 2, the patient suffers with things like horrible reflux or nonstop vomiting. Step 3, a doctor or dietitian has to carefully write down all that suffering to prove failure to an insurance company. And only then can they maybe get the food that actually works. It puts doctors and dietitians in just an impossible spot. They're stuck in this ethical trap. They know exactly what the best treatment is, the one that leads to better health and fewer hospital visits, but their hands are tied by these restrictive insurance rules.
And believe it or not, fail first is just the start. Providers are drowning in paperwork. There's this thing called a reimbursement app that can make it so suppliers actually lose money providing the good stuff. And it all creates this zip code lottery, where your ability to get real food literally depends on where you live. It's a mess.
So all of these barriers, they have very real consequences. Let's talk about the hidden costs of a system this short-sighted and who really ends up paying the price.
The logic behind this whole system is just flawed. It's laser-focused on that small bar on the left, the slightly lower upfront cost of a synthetic formula, but it completely ignores the gigantic costs on the right. The ER visits, the hospital stays, the expensive drugs and treatments for all the complications that come from forcing a patient onto a formula their body just rejects.
I mean, it is the absolute definition of being penny-wise and pound-foolish. The system is designed to save a few dollars today, only to end up spending thousands upon thousands tomorrow. And all of that comes at the cost of real human suffering. So what this all boils down to is a fundamental systemic disconnect. We've got a system where policy is in a direct head-to-head fight with clear, established science.
It really is this simple. On one side, you have all the clinical evidence that says, hey, use whole food formulas to make people healthier and keep them out of the hospital. And on the other side, you have insurance policy that demands, nope, use the synthetic stuff first, completely ignoring all that evidence. Which leaves all of us with one final and I think pretty crucial question. We all hear that phrase, right? Food is medicine? But if that's really true, why in the world have we built a system where a bureaucratic policy is allowed to override a doctor's prescription?